Would you mind just telling us your first name?
My name's Elizabeth.
Could you start by telling us a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, my childhood was kind of a rough upbringing. Um, Everybody has like divorced parents and stuff like that. That's kind of normal. But my mom struggled a little bit growing up. She struggled keeping a house over us, me and my brother. And she worked long hours as like a nurse. So she would go in like at 11 p.m. and then come out really, really early. And because of that, a lot of stress. Like she had a lot of stress and she inflicted those stress onto us. And not in a bad way, but I mean, like, I think all that stress made us like depressed because of the situations that we were put in. The way she would treat us, the way she would talk to me and my brother. And because of that, we were always like so unsure, like when was a good day to talk to our mom and when was a day that we couldn't talk to her. And because of that, also, my brother had it rougher than me because I was like only 10 when we lived on our own. And my brother was like 15. And with all that stress coming in from my parents and from their like fighting and constantly fighting for battles and stuff, my brother was having a really rough time in school, and so was I. And my childhood basically was tragic in a sense of one day, like at night, we came to come wake up my mom for her shift. And my brother decided that he was gonna stay at home, wash some clothes before school. And I went inside and I went to go look for my brother and I saw him. And he wasn't alive. And I had to call my mom and I had to wake her up. And I was only 10. And that, seeing him not alive, seeing him hanging, really did some damage to me as a kid. And my grandparents were the one who drove me to come pick up my mom to take her to work. And I grew up fairly Christian. Actually grew up in a very Christian environment. And right then and there, I questioned God. I questioned everything. I questioned what I knew and what I grew up with. Because how can a God so loving do that? Or let that happen? Basically, my childhood was just tragic in a sense of having to experience things very early on in life and having to comprehend it and understand what was going on.
How do you comprehend it?
It took a couple years to comprehend it. Like going in and out of like therapy, and you know, I'm very blessed for that, being able to get a therapist in general. I think it took a couple of years of comprehending what happened, why it happened, and just basically, why did it happen? Like, why did it happen to him? Why did he want to do that? Our life wasn't great, but I mean, it couldn't be that bad. But just the way I comprehended it was basically some people really have so much stress on them and feel like the world is coming upon them and fighting against them, and it just, there's nothing that you can really do to be able to fix that in that person. And I was only 10, so there was no way I can talk to my brother about big things like that.
Did you have any dreams as a child?
Yeah. If we're talking about like career-wise, I wanted to be a counselor for teenagers. I think I grew up really fast because of that. And because of the situation, I was like, I want to go to Mexico and start like an orphanage and be a counselor and get kids off the street, basically. Those are my dreams as a kid.
Could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with your dad, or lack thereof, and how that felt?
My relationship with my dad is pretty rocky since I was a kid. Because he left so early on in our age, and he found different people to be with. I guess I always lacked that. I always lacked that fatherly protection and that fatherly love up until I moved with him when I was 16 to San Antonio. And even then, he didn't know how to be a dad. He just kind of let me do what I wanted to do because he didn't know what to do. So my relationship with him, I would have to say it's grown now, because now that I'm an adult, we can understand each other more. But it's not always there. It's not always like a support system. If anything, the person I call my father is God.
How did that feel growing up, the lack of relationship growing up versus how it feels kind of, I guess, maybe at least trying for a relationship or being open to it?
How does it feel? It felt horrible because, I mean, every daughter wants to hear from their dad that they're proud of them. My dad, being Mexican and grew up very, very tough, he doesn't know what love is either. So when I didn't get that affirmation from him, or I didn't get the "I'm proud of you," it was hard on me, and it took a mental toll on me as a kid, especially seeing him treat my stepmom's kids better than he did my brother and I. And now that we're more open to the relationship, I mean, things are better now, I think, because now I've been able to communicate with him more about how I felt as a kid. But I think he still needs a lot to learn, because, he hasn't really been a dad, and he doesn't really know what love is. So I can't really blame him for that.
What about your relationship with your mom and how that felt?
My mom, she is such an angel. I mean, she's a warrior, honestly. But because due to my brother circumstances and stuff, she became a very overbearing, overprotective mama bear. And who can blame her? So anytime she would see me sad or start to get into my depressed state, immediately take me to the doctor, immediately to get me checked, immediately, everything. I felt like I couldn't breathe sometimes because of that overprotection, that barrier of I couldn't do much. I couldn't really be out there, and I couldn't really explore because she'd be worried that I'd get something or an influence wrong, and just all hell would break loose and she would lose another child. So because of that, me and her would butt heads a lot, because it was just me and her for a while until I was 16. Just because of all that trying to keep me down and trying to keep me in a little cage, I bursted out of the cage and I became a very rebellious kid. And due to that, me and her just fought a lot, physically and argument. Like, we argued all the time about everything. And yeah, after one point of being in and out of mental hospitals because of her putting me there thinking that there was a lot of things wrong with me, which there was, I broke free and I ended up going to live with my dad when I was 16. But now our relationship is good. It's amazing, and no matter what me and her both went through as me being a kid, I still see her as a warrior. I still see her as somebody who went through life and took all the punches and still kept going.
What's the biggest thing you learned from both your parents, good or bad?
I learned from them to not ignore the people surrounding you. I learned that I shouldn't just take lightly what other people say to me, what they mean to me, or what anything, just in general. Because of that, I think I'm more aware of my surroundings with people and observe them a little bit more as to how they're feeling and what they say to me. That's what I learned from them. There's not much to that.
Could you tell us about your first love and how that first love felt? It's whatever you associate as your first love. It can be a person, place, hobby, etc.
My first love was actually God. I'm sorry.
When did you feel that love?
16. I had went to a long rampage of being an atheist. Just because I was still holding on to that rage of my brother. And it was when I first moved to San Antonio. And I came to this little small church, Spanish church. And I was just so against it. I was against everything, the hypocritical criticism and just everything in general that has to do with God. And I went to a youth group thing. It was like a camp. And I remember just being there listening to the message. And it was a message about forgiving. It was a message about just being able to forgive yourself for things that you had no control over. And I felt like the message was God talking to me. I felt like he was telling me that, he's still there for me, that the door is still open, that he still loved me. And I remember crying, like just hysterically crying. And after the message, the pastor actually came up to me and she told me so many weird things that only I would know. It had to do with like my past and it had to do with like a loss. And it wasn't like some weird, like, I don't know, spooky stuff. It was more like she was seeing me and she was seeing the hurt. Like she could see it through my eyes. And I was just like, wow, like, how do you know this stuff? And she said, the Holy Spirit speaks through me. And God knows all. And I just remember crying. And then she prayed for me. And right then and there, I felt like this anger lift, the depression lift, the anxiety, the hate. And I felt free. Free, like I had been chained down. And I was able to feel again and have a heart again.
It's beautiful. And that moment presumably changed your entire life.
Yes.
How does that love keep you going today? What does that love, the love of God, that of being unchained, what do you do with that now?
What keeps me going is basically seeing other kids who are like me, teenagers that are like me, and being able to like share the word, share like the love. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be like, oh, I want you to follow God. It's just being there for them. It's showing love for them and telling them that they have a support system and they have somebody to count on, and what I do with that love now, obviously everybody has their fallbacks, but I will never stop loving people and I will never stop forgiving everyone because I don't want to die and feel like I didn't love anybody enough, or I didn't look at them enough, or I didn't give them something that, they could have had, a support, a hand, or a shoulder to cry on.
What about your first loss or heartbreak? And it's whatever you associate with that. And we can, if you've already mentioned it, we can definitely talk more about it.
My loss. That would be my brother Isaac. We didn't have the best relationship growing up. He would push me down the stairs, like for fun, I guess, because I was his little sister. He would tell me like mean things, but that's a brother and sister relationship there. But from time to time, he would protect me. He would defend me. I remember I used to get bullied in school, and he would come up to the kids and like basically tell them off. And I really loved my big brother so much. I remember seeing him get bullied at school for being in the special ed class, which he was completely normal. He was just a little bit slower in his learning abilities. And I remember getting off the bus and I would hear the kids taunt him. And I remember screaming at those kids, and they were like maybe 5 years older than me and way above grade than me. I remember screaming at them and telling them to basically stop it and knock it off. And my brother would just grab me and he's like, let's just walk home. Let's just leave it alone. Like, don't even worry about it. And that would constantly happen growing up with him. And I can never stop to think about, was bullying something that also played into it? Because yes, we had a difficult life at home, and we had a lot of screaming matches between my parents and females coming in and going from our lives for my dad's part. But I think bullying really took a toll on him, like the most. And losing him and seeing him there, it was the worst feeling ever, because I no longer had my big brother. I didn't have somebody to defend me. I didn't have somebody to cover my ears whenever my parents were saying bad stuff. I didn't have anyone to push me around anymore. As much as people think like, oh, that's horrible, I do really miss that. I miss that brother and sister relationship.
Who first taught you love and how?
My grandma. My grandma first taught me how to love. As weird as it sounds, it was by making tortillas. I remember her, she was showing me how to knead and like how to put the masa together and stuff like that. And she was showing both me and my brother. And my brother was just like so not into it. And he's like, look, Isaac, this is how you are supposed to love your sister. You're supposed to take care of her. You're supposed to put all the ingredients together to show her, this specific love and understanding her kind of love. And then being gentle with it. And then she was kind of like rolling it around. It was kind of weird. I'm not going to lie. It's really weird to teach somebody to be kind to your sister. And I just remember her just telling me, like, you need to be gentle. You need to be kind. And, when the tortilla's done, you just put it on the pan and that's it. But that's how I was taught how to love, was just being kind and being understanding and putting all the ingredients to understanding how other people love or understanding their love.
What's love to you now versus to what it was when you were younger? How do those two different loves feel?
Those loves are two drastically different things. My love then was thinking that I needed to be there for everyone feeling like I needed to help everyone, fix everyone, and just do everything for everyone. That was my love then. And my love now, it's still the same, but it's taking a step back whenever I need to. Because I need to love myself too, because I can't keep pouring all my love into these people. And I can't be doing all that because now it drains me. So love now is loving myself and then loving others. And knowing when to take a step back, because some people need that space to grow. You can't just keep pouring water and water and water in a plant and expect it to grow. You know, you need to take a step back, let it soak up the sun, let it grow a little bit, and then come back and pour.
How do you refill your own cup, fill up your own cup? What are the things you do to love yourself, to make sure that you can love others?
I think that's very difficult because, you know, we're still growing. I still am learning how to self-love. But my self-love would have to be like reading what God says about me. It's basically reading him saying like, I'm a ruby and I'm precious and I have a purpose and I have all these things that are ahead of me. And that's just one thing, like just reading the Bible and praying to God. But I think the way I refill my love is taking the time to really understand myself and understand basically how I'm doing, you know, is there something that I need to fix? Is there something that I need to understand more? Basically just asking, self-reflecting basically on myself and taking the time to fix what I need to fix.
What's a good day look like for you?
A good day. It's being with my fiance actually. When we spend all day together and we're just out and doing little things or just walking around Walmart and just spending time together, that's a good day to me, like a regular good day.
What about a bad day?
A bad day, it feels like whenever everything is just kind of like falling out of place and everything's just falling and exploding. That's what a bad day seems like to me. Basically just so many fighting and arguing between both of my parents maybe, or fighting with, you know, the people I love the most, and just feeling like everything is just falling out of place and that I'm doing something wrong or I'm not perfect enough, or basically that.
How do you work through those days, or how do you just keep going through those days?
I think I have to take on the task one by one. So if I'm fighting with my dad, I have to sit through it and just hear out what's going on, what can I do, what am I doing, basically, what can I do to help him and how can he help me, you know. And the way I fix that is just going to the people individually or fixing the problem individually, one by one, because I can't take it all on one.
What's a person or an event that shaped you, good or bad? How does it feel when you reflect on it?
There was this person, her name is Rocio. She's actually my youth pastor from when I was 17. She is an amazing and outstanding woman. Her love for God is amazing. The way she helped me through all of my problems, she made me feel like somebody was actually listening to me. Like God was a big part of it, but I felt like this person, she was like a mentor to me. She really helped me understand that my issues right now seem really huge, but later on they won't seem like anything at all. And although I would cry and whatever situation I was going through at the time, she was there for me to hold. She was there to tell me that things will pass. And she would just give me so many words of affirmation. She truly was somebody that I really needed at the time, because I felt like I didn't know how to love myself, or I didn't know how to deal with stress. And she showed me so many coping mechanisms, and just ways that I can grow. And I owe her who I am actually today because of what she taught me.
What are some of those coping mechanisms?
Coping mechanisms. So there's this thing that she would do with me. Whenever I'd wake up and I'd be like so depressed, and she would be like, let me drive you to school. I'm gonna drive you to school today. And I'm like, okay. Before I get off the car, she's like, I'm gonna say it in Spanish and I'm gonna translate it. She would be like, hoy es un día de, and basically waiting for me to respond. And I'd be like, Victoria. She's like, no, you need to say it with more energy. So basically what it means, she would be like, today is a day of, and I'd be like, victory. And she would not stop saying that to me until I basically shouted in the car, Victoria, victory. And basically just getting me started for the day to actually feel like I'm gonna conquer today. I'm going to get through today.
What inspires you?
What inspires me? People, actually. Seeing people's stories and seeing other people's, how they overcame stuff and how they overcame all the obstacles they needed to. It inspires me to want to do more for my community. It inspires me to want to be there more for kids like me, or people who were in my situation who still need help and still need a support system.
What's been a humbling experience for you?
Growing up, I was like the black sheep of the family, because I was the kid who was doing drugs, the kid who just weed. But I was the one who was doing weed. I was the one who had a death in the family, who had trauma, who had depression. So everybody would kind of stay away from me. Like most of my dad's side of the family would just kind of be like, oh, you're a little weird, can't understand what you went through or why you do the things that you do. What was most humbling about that, though, is basically learning how to do it on my own, even till now, even now, actually, now that I'm still, I'm an adult. It's humbling because if they would have been a support system, if they would have loved me and kind of try to give me a support in general, I think I wouldn't be the person I am today, because they taught me that not everybody can understand people's situation, what they went through. They taught me that not anybody can just talk to a kid who's gone through hard stuff. You can't. It's really hard, because you're just going to sit there and listen to these kids and you're like, oh, I'm sorry about that. And they really humbled me in that sense of, they taught me to grow up alone. They taught me how to go at it alone and being discluded from the family. And so I can understand how to be for those kids who are also discluded from their family. And that was the most humbling experience that I've ever gotten from anybody.
For this next question, if you can go in your mind and think, this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war?
Yeah. When I was 14, I was constantly trying to take my life. I was constantly trying to end it. And it was a war between myself. It was a war of seeing my mom crying after I attempted, and just feeling like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to her? But then thinking to myself, but no, I need to do this because I hate my life. I hate what I'm going through. I hate who I am. I hate how I look. I hate everything. And it was a constant war of going in and out of mental hospitals and trying to keep myself alive, trying to fight for my life even though I didn't want to, even though I didn't see a point to. And that's what war was for me growing up.
How'd you get through that?
I didn't want my mom to lose another kid. So I had to keep that in mind, that it'd be selfish of me to make everybody else hurt again.
When you go through depression and you have those suicidal thoughts, and I think from the outside looking in, sometimes it could seem selfish. I have a cousin who hung himself as well. When you're in it, it doesn't seem selfish. When you're going through the depression, it's such a mix of the most dark, negative thoughts and emotions that you can just imagine.
Yeah.
And to get out of that is sometimes it takes a miracle. You seem to have gotten one. For this next question, if you can go in your mind and think, this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace?
Yeah. It was a good day at my mom's house whenever my brother was still alive. And I remember he was like, I'm going to go hang out with my friends and I'm going to do this and this. And my mom was having a really great day too. And she was relaxing, just cooking food and cooking, like, I forgot what she was making. I think she was making quesadillas at the time, which was both of me and my brother's like favorite food at the time. And I remember it was like it was in September. It was breezy and a little bit chilly, but almost so warm, like the sun was out. And I remember I asked my brother if I could use his bike to go bike around the neighborhood. I remember just getting on the bike and it being my first memory of peace, because I felt like there was nothing in the world that could destroy my happiness that I had right now. And I was getting on the bike and I was catching a lot of wind, and I was like around maybe 8, and just feeling that tranquility of basically nothing in the world could bring me down in that very moment of feeling amazing, feeling this breeze, and it's like hot at the same time, and my brother laughing and joking around with his friends, my mom in there cooking, relaxed, and just everybody right in the world, just everything's okay.
How did that feel briefly?
It feels amazing. It feels amazing to even think about it.
For this next question, can you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life, how it felt, how you endured?
I think a truly difficult time would have to be when I first moved to San Antonio and I was just weaning off my depression pills. And I already had a really rocky relationship with my dad's side of the family, who majorly lives here. And we were living with them for a while until they realized they didn't want me specifically because I was a bad influence on their girls. So my dad had just bought a house, just right, like maybe like a couple days later after they basically said they didn't want me there anymore. And he bought a house near them, near our high school, or near the high school I was going to. And I was a new kid at this school. Nobody knew me. I didn't know anybody. And I remember just feeling like crap, like nobody in the world would care if I died right now. So I remember in the middle of class, I was in art class, I just told the teacher I needed to go to the restroom. I grabbed my stuff and I left. And I walked home, like all the whole way home. And my dad was at work at the time. It was just a newly house, like we just got it. There was no furniture, there was nothing. And I broke into my own house, but I found bleach under the sink. And I was like, this is my chance. This is my chance to just end it. I'm away from my mom. She won't find me. Nobody in this town really cares or knows who I am, so it doesn't matter. I went into a closet and I started drinking it. And it was really hard because obviously bleach does not taste amazing. But it was hard gulping down and understanding, like, this is something that I want. This is something that I want to do, that I want to end. And in that moment, after I took a second gulp, I called my dad. And I was like, and he didn't answer. So I called my grandma. And I told my grandma, and I was like, I want to do this right now. And she was like, don't do it. Because you're only 16. You don't know what can happen 2 years from now. And I was so mad at her, angry at the phone for her pleading for me to not take my life. I was like, Grandma, you don't understand. You don't understand how I'm feeling. You don't understand what I'm going through. You don't understand this battle. I remember her telling me, tírale al león, which means throw it to the lion. Whatever is going on, whatever you're feeling right now, just throw it to the lion. Tíralo al león. And like in those moments, you don't want to hear that. You want to hear like, I love you and da 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 da, but not just like, throw it, just leave it, just let it go. I was like, you know what, Grandma, I'm just gonna have to call you back later. And then I hung up and I was staring at the bleach bottle and I was just like talking to God in that moment, like, why can't I let it go? Why am I feeling this way? Why do I want to end it so badly? And my grandma had called my dad, and my dad had rushed over from work to the house. I remember I was about to take another gulp of bleach, and then he came in rushing in, and he grabbed me, and he grabbed the bleach, and he threw it outside. He got me in his truck, and he was like, you need to throw up. And I was just like, no, I don't want to. And basically from then and there, like, he took me along with him to work, but he was like, if you throw up, like, he basically gave me a whole speech about how he wants to see me thrive. And I guess I didn't take enough bleach in anyways. I didn't even feel any effects after an hour or anything like that. So I guess it was a miracle that it wasn't enough to kill me. But to hear the words that I was so longing to hear from my dad of, I want to see you grow and I want to see you thrive and I want to be there for you, was something I needed. I needed to hear. because it was enough for me to stay in an unknown city to know that my dad wanted to see me grow.
Would you say in that moment, of trying to take your own life, would you describe it as someone who was being selfish or somebody who was just hurt?
Somebody who's just hurt. I don't think people understand sometimes of how truly down bad you have to be to want it in your own life. And it's a lot of pain that these people go through. It's a lot of hurt. And they feel like nobody in the world listens and nobody in the world loves them. It's just pain.
Could you tell us about a truly joyous moment in your life?
Yeah. There's a couple actually. I'm not sure which one to point out. I think it was my quinceañera. Whenever my mom had put this really like tiny small quinceañera together, we didn't have much money to do a whole big one. And I remember her inviting, everybody that we knew, all of my family members, everyone there, and her side of the family, my dad's side of the family. And I didn't really have a big turnout. I had a couple family members. But I remember at the time, I was still going through my attempts occasionally. I remember standing in there with this really beautiful dress, this gorgeous, beautiful dress that I picked out. It was like this sparkly blue. And seeing the people that loved me being there. And I remember giving a speech, and I was just so filled with joy. I didn't care who didn't come. I didn't care who wasn't there, who didn't call to tell me happy birthday. What I cared was the people that was there for me and there to enjoy my quinceañera. And I remember feeling a lot of joy dancing with my mom at my quinceañera, because through everything that we had been through, this one little moment that we had together was the most joy that I had felt with my family and peace that I felt with my family. And it was just beautiful. And I cried out of joy, It was just something magical that I really loved.
What keeps you up at night?
Not feeling like I'm enough. I feel like with my toxic family that I have, family, cousins, whatever, everybody compares their kids to each other's, and I feel like I'm not enough for my parents. Maybe I haven't done enough. Like my other cousins, they went to universities, finished school, and did so many great things in life, and applause to them. That's amazing. I'm happy for y'all. But I think what really keeps me up at night is just feeling like I'm not enough for anybody in my life, all my loved ones. Like, I haven't done enough for them. I haven't made them proud for me. And I think it's hard to go to sleep when you're thinking that maybe tomorrow I'll do something glorious enough for them, for the people that I love. Or maybe I won't. Or maybe in 20 years from now, I'll still be the same person that I am today. And everybody else will keep growing. And I will stop. And I'll just stay in this plateau.
What do you truly believe about that in your heart of hearts with it, and bring Jesus into it or bring God into it? When you read those things of what God says about you, what's your heart tell you of what the truth of who you are is?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what my loved one thinks. It doesn't matter if I'm not enough for them. whoever it is, a boyfriend, a best friend, my parents, my family, God thinks I'm enough. And he will always think that I'm enough. And that love that I feel overpowers any human on this earth. Because I know that I have a purpose. I know this little season that I have in my life is going to pass. And I will continue to grow. And that I'm still worthy. And I'm worthy for love.
What's the biggest thing that keeps you going every day?
The biggest thing is making my brother proud. I think thinking that maybe there's a possibility that he could be looking down at me, and seeing that I'm doing what I can for people that were like him and kids that were like us. I think it keeps me going because you never know who you can bump into and change with one single word, with a hug, with anything. You never know. And it keeps me going because there's so many people out there that really need to feel that love. And I think my brother, the idea of my brother looking at me and seeing that I'm doing good, that I can make a change with these kids, these teens, or these people in general.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
Not forgiving enough. I think my regret would be letting people's idea of me still haunt me and not really putting myself out there like I should be, and holding myself back from really truly engaging with the world entirely like I'm supposed to. But it's because the idea of other people talking about me the way they do, I think I would regret that so much, of letting them control my life.
So you're not on your deathbed, you're right here, you're alive and well. With that regret that you just stated, do you feel that you can change or make amends with that and move forward?
Yes, I can, but I think it's a thing that it's a process. You can't just forget everything. You can't just like, oh yeah, whatever. People say that. They're like, oh, fuck it. Like, yeah. I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. But deep down, you do. People do. It's a process to really starting to, the more that you get to know yourself, the more that you grow into yourself, none of the stuff that anybody says matters, because guess what? You know, that's not true. That's not true. And you know it's not true. You know what I mean? What they say. But it's a process of always growing and getting to know yourself more. It's not easy. It's not easy to just be like, oh, I'm going to let it go. Just going to let it be. I don't care what anybody says. It's a process. So, yeah, I'm still trying, and I'm still getting there, and I still want to, but it's not that easy.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
My dream is to be a youth pastor. I know that I can be pretty soon, but I would like to grow a little bit more with God, and get to know God a little bit more before I start taking that journey on. My dreams is for me and my husband, my future husband, to basically have a little ministry for teens who don't have that. And I don't mean just like the kids who just come from already Christian families. I'm talking about the kids who are in the streets who don't know God yet, who don't know love. going out in the streets and just talking to these kids. And I don't mean just about God, I mean about life. You know, you need to be able to understand these teens. But I think my dreams now is just to be a youth minister, to be able to bring kids into the church, or just bring them back to life, because they don't know what life can be until someone can show them.
You're the co-author of your life story. What's your picture perfect ending? And it's not necessarily like the end. It's just if it was a movie or a book, what's a scenic ending for you? Like this was your movie or your, you know?
Yeah. My picture perfect ending would probably be like the end credits would end on me at a church with my husband, my kids, and my kids running around and having like all these like kids, all these teenagers who are so in love with their life and turning it around. I think that would be my picture perfect ending.
How would it feel?
Amazing.